Good morning, everyone. This is the Kubeflow SDK and ML Experience working group community call on 19th of November. As always, we're going to record this call and we're going to publish on YouTube afterwards, and we follow the CNCF code of conduct. So this is our first meeting out of KubeCon. We have a lot of things to talk about. Maybe before just we get started, any new people here on the call who just want to say hello, want to introduce yourself to the community? Feel free to unmute. Yeah, yes, go ahead.
Hello. I'm Michael. I work at Capital One. I also just happen to be a Kubeflow Pipelines contributor maintainer. So yeah, I got to meet a good amount of folks from the Kubeflow SDK working group at KubeCon. So decided to come and see what everything's all about.
Thanks, Michael. It was a great time. Anyone else? Yeah. Uh, I think we can't hear you if you're talking for some reason.
Can you hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah, now we can. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. I'm Isa. This is my first community call as well. Here to I work on the Kubeflow trainer. I'm from Red Hat. I'm here on Anya's invitation. I have one of the agendas to talk about just network pointing. So yeah, hello, everyone.
It's great. Thanks for joining. Great to have you here. Yeah, Matteo?
Yeah, hi. I think that some of you may know me already, but I'm part for the model registry working group in Kubeflow, and I'm joining today for talking pointing to the agenda. Thank you for having me, and nice to meet you, all the others.
Thanks for joining. Anyone else? All right. So I guess we definitely get a lot of things to talk about today, and then definitely a lot of things we talk at the KubeCon in the last 5 days. So first of all, I think for us it was a great success. I think we did have a lot of sessions in the first day of the Kubeflow Summit. I also have all the discussions even on the Maintainer Summit. We also do have a couple of demos on the KubeCon stage. We did a demo in the Solution Showcase. So overall, I guess this is what community needs. At least we're talking about experience side of things and why we start this project. And many organizations have exactly the same problems that we discussed over the past 7 months. So I think we're on track. We definitely need to do a lot of work to enhance the experience and enhance development of SDK. But at least at least from my perspective, we get a lot of positive signals from companies that they actually have exactly the same problems we discuss here. So again, thanks everyone for your time, for spending your effort to make this possible, and definitely looking forward to see how we can achieve more, onboard more organizations to this effort. So yeah, I think right now the question is about how we can develop something which can provide a unified experience across all different organizations, and how we can even deploy this in upstream, and at the same time organizations can use this SDK internally for their products. So they kind of a lot of work in progress required from us to work with those organizations and to understand what they want. But I think the survey, and we will talk about it right now, and other things we try to do will help us to understand what should be our focus here. Yeah, so for the KubeCon, anything you want to add, Anya or Michael or others who've been there?
It was a great experience, great meeting everyone, and looking forward for the Amsterdam KubeCon.
Yes, I think one thing that probably we should also talk about is the demos that we prepare for KubeCon, and let me post them in our meeting notes. So basically, before KubeCon, we kind of published. First of all, we've done a release, and we published the announcement of this release with 0.2, but we also kind of record several demos on YouTube, which we probably need to put to the README, I think. So folks can actually see what is possible and what they can do with SDK. This demo without voiceover, unfortunately, but maybe it's something for others to explore. What do you think? Does it sound good to everyone? so we can get more visibility on the demos.
That makes sense to me. I would maybe prefer having a voiceover version of it before publishing to README, but we can do it meantime.
Yeah, I think like re-recording this with the voiceover will be really nice. Yeah, but we need someone who can take a lead and take a lead and do those recording. Do you know anyone like any from your team who might be interesting to to do this work?
I can do the optimizer one, and I will check out with Fiona regarding local execution mode, I guess. Oh, she's there. If she
I'm here.
doesn't.
Yeah, I can do that one. Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay. So let's definitely do this, and I can re-upload them on YouTube, and then we can publish them on README with the voiceover, so at least folks can have some visibility here. I think it's super important, especially for because not many people are aware of what we do, and I think giving them these kind of videos will help them to get onboarded. All right, so I think like moving forward, so for the blog, so yeah, I think we haven't discussed it on this call, right? So we have a blog post, which is actually the blog post about the Kubeflow SDK. And we just published it right before the KubeCon, so we can get this announcement. If you haven't got the chance to take a look, please check it. And this blog post gives you like the overall high-level overview, what we have in 0.2, what is our future vision, etc. So it's great, great content all in all. And I think we also kind of have this survey, which we started also a week ago. So the goal of this survey is for us to collect the feedback from people who maybe don't even use Kubeflow or Kubeflow SDK, but maybe have challenges they can share with us. So what I kind of like want to ask here, if you have a research team or data science team who might who can spend 5 minutes to fill the survey, please share this with them, even if they don't use Kubeflow or Kubeflow SDK or not planning to use Kubeflow, because for us it's kind of important to understand what are the pain points, what should be our focus on, etc. So we can understand the roadmap and the future vision for this kind of Pythonic experience. And we also have a discussion thread here, which we created. So if you have any kind of follow-up questions or want to have like deep dive discussions with the community, feel free to add your comments here, or any questions so far. We can use this discussion thread as the kind of as a forum. I think this was Saad proposed before in the last call, so we can have conversation with the end users, because we do have Slack, we do have the GitHub, and we also have the survey. So I think this is 3 good places for us to collect the feedback. Yeah, anything else on the survey or on the discussion thread here?
On the survey part, I know I have to sync with Alex. I did check we were able to actually access the survey on our internal Capital One machine. So I don't know if his product person is different than my product person. So I'm gonna see if there's a way that they want to coordinate like distribution internally of that survey. But I'll bring it up in like the pipelines meeting today of like, because there was talk a while ago of kind of having a banner at the top of the UI that would link to some form of announcements that we would have for pipelines. So I feel like if you're going to be using pipelines, you might be dabbling with the Kubeflow SDK at some point, at least in the future. So
Yep.
it could be a good primer.
So when you say not available, like what do you mean exactly? Like you cannot open the story, or you can complete?
Oh, no. Well, it is available. Like it is.
Okay.
Like we can access it because all of Capital One's internal is like using the Google Suite in the back end. So sometimes like we can't access these Google Docs internally. Like it's blocked. But the form we're able to access. So
The discussion thread, you mean, right? This one, or
that we should, yeah. We got access to GitHub. Yeah, external.
Yeah, let us know like if we can simplify in some case. I mean, like, we're using Google Form because it's kind of accessible for majority of folks.
Yeah.
And I think we've been using this before, like overall Kubeflow survey over the years. I think we need to also understand like for how for how much this will be open, for how many days, etc. So I know so Sat is not on the call here right now. Like Sat, you're here. So what do you think like in terms of timeline? Like when do we think we can, give that?
I wanted to leave this open for maybe like a week or two after the KubeCon, because people usually go to KubeCon, might take like some days off or traveling back, might be, feeding back their teams on what was happening in KubeCon. So maybe one more week and we just take it down.
Yeah, my perspective is maybe more. I would
Okay.
maybe have it like at least end of this year. Yeah, but yeah, we can definitely see like in terms of responses, etc. I go
Yeah,
ahead.
the end of year is not far away, so we can keep it definitely till January. Then yeah, the main idea like is now it's now like kind of variable, so we can create more surveys later on, maybe after we get model registry, after we onboard pipelines or we integrate with pipelines. So we need to keep this happening as cadence. And I would say with new releases, we also need to have surveys and distribute them and ask people to do it. I realized also I did one mistake, which is I didn't send the survey to the main list to ask people to fill it up. So probably people in the main list Kubeflow discuss, they're not aware that we have the survey unless they open the website or they were at KubeCon.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, so can you please send this final survey? Just remind them on the
Yeah,
queue
I
for
will.
Scott. Yeah.
I will. Thank
Yeah, and you go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to echo what you just said regarding 1 week shouldn't be enough. I would wait till the new year probably. I'm currently working with some people on Red Hat side to also share with data scientist teams as well. So maybe we'll wait like a few months, I would say, depending on how many people we can get.
Yep, that sounds good. Let's definitely also share. I think we will also maybe remind folks a couple of times in the LinkedIn and other socials. Yeah, but we can figure out like what we can do like maybe in a couple of weeks to see how many responses we get. All right, so jumping to the next topics. Anything else here? Yes, again, like feel free to, again, we released the SDK 0.2 just before KubeCon, so try this out. Let us know if you see any errors. I know we already have some problems with the user that Brian is trying to address, the problem with pip install. And I think we might need to discuss whether we want to cherry pick to 0.2.1. But we can do it async. We're still kind of discussing what should be an option here to do pip install by the user. Basically, to not fail when you run the image in the environment, in the virtual environment. And this is the release notes if you want to take a look. All right, so for the let's discuss first the model registry topic. So Matteo, do you want to give your overview, or how do you want to talk about these things?
Yeah, it's like maybe so first of all, thank you for having me, and also congratulations for the success at KubeCon. This is a great initiative, and I think that maybe it's also good, as we were discussing the community call, to consider how we can integrate the client that sort of like were already existing when this SDK started. So in that regards, I think that just a brief history, at least for the way that I've experienced, is that the SDK sort of like started indeed with this focus, and I think is the good call. But now it's potentially the time to integrate existing client because indeed I'm also getting the question like, how the model registry Python client and the SDK relates to each other. So here we have one of the contributors from the model registry actually submitting a PR to expose the Python client inside the Kubeflow SDK by reusing the Python code, the wheel. So beyond let me summarize it this way, beyond the technical nuances on how to do so, first of all, I wanted to take the chance today to ask the group if that is indeed the correct approach. Like, is the SDK the way that we can surface existing client? And then after that, we can discuss which of the two technical solution can be done here. Because what I would like to make sure is that from the model registry working group, we are actually aligned. with what you folks are doing here for the SDK.
Yeah, I can give my perspective. Anyone else want to jump in and say something here?
I can say something after you, so go ahead.
All right. Yeah, so I think we have to. So first of all, let me ask a few clarifying questions, Matteo. Like, I know model registry has a client which already maintained in the model registry. What is the future of this client moving towards other capabilities with model registry, especially with this catalog idea and hub, maybe potential renaming?
Yeah, so about the renaming, also to make potentially make clarity, the rename is due to the fact that in the model registry project per se, we have many capabilities. So we have the model catalog as a button, we have the model registry as a button, we have integration with storages, and we have indeed this Python client. So the feature of the Python client is that we will keep it because we want to keep the model registry. And so it's like if you want to register say the new version of your model because you are fine tuning it, or it's like you're doing several training of your predictive models. This is the part that model registry actually allows you to do. For the model catalog pattern, that is a different story because once we will have some API, I think it's a matter to decide how that integrates with the other, I would say, component. So indeed, it can be part of this client as well that we can rename if we also want it. I don't think it's actually the case because what I'm expecting that will happen with the catalog is that it's just fine to use the REST API to receive the models that because the catalog is more I would say it moves slowly. It's like it's what the admin set up for the people to say, hey, the people in my company should use this model as foundation model. Model registry is more interactive, so that speaks about the data scientist that is doing several operations. So the model registry Python client also like stays and is not affected by this rename. The rename, for those who may know, we have a cap open to rename that project to hub or something like that be simply because we found that people thought that we only offering model registry capabilities, while in fact, in practical cases, it's not.
Yeah, and do you kind of envision that it will be two separate clients, right? Because Hub is kind of like a similar to, centralized store for all its artifacts that users can also use. Do you want to have two different clients for these two different capabilities? Or
It,
yeah.
That depends really how is going
Mhm.
to be the request for the API. Because at present we are surfacing and we are using this API to manage from the UI because the catalog is more where people browse for it than anything else. So I'm not expecting that people browse the catalog through a client. I'm expecting that people browse the catalog through the UI that we have. While instead the model registry indeed is something that people browse through the UI, but actually populate through the client. So that's why
Mhm.
I'm saying I
And
think
yeah, but when they browse, when they browse from the UI like on the hub, similar to, when they do the Hugging Face, right? Like how they can download the model from this hub.
download for
Like for example, like imagine I have a catalog of the models, right? Like how they can get the model locally or the getting model in their training job. Like which API they should use.
yeah, so I can give you an example on how we are already extending for the catalog for the deployment. So in the
Mhm.
case that the UI will create a K-server SVC directly from the catalog. Or
Mhm.
as well, we have the integration that goes from the catalog to the registry because you want to use what you have in the registry to fine tune a foundation model. So
Mhm.
the catalog, in my view, is like, as you said, is from Hugging Face. Everybody is different, but I think that most people browse Hugging Face through their browser. And then actually they connect to the client once they identify the actual model that they want to use.
I see. So, but you don't really kind of serve an API, right? Like, the client, specific client to talk to Hub, because I know Hugging Face has Hugging Face Hub, for example,
And
package,
but
right?
and you could browse indeed through the client, but typically people browse, meaning like they go and look for models through the UI. Then they use Hugging Face Hub client, the Python client, once they sort of like selected that specific model. So I think it's more to that pattern.
So you kind of like have this two ways, right? Like the model registry to interact with the existing registry, and maybe Hub to interact with, or other, package name that you decide to use to interact with this catalog, right? And
the catalog already offers this API that the UI is using, but frankly speaking, unless you are a terminal folk, I don't think that people are going to browse the catalog through this UI. Maybe there is a case indeed as more, I would say, user feedback is going to be received about how do we, I wanted this function in a Python client, and then maybe that is the case where we can directly develop this one in the Kubeflow SDK. Because they will be already in the SDK and interacting with the catalog saying, hey, I'm doing this operation through the browser. Can I do that one through the SDK? At that point, I think that those are things that we can surface directly here in the SDK.
Yeah, because I think we need to understand like whether there should be two different clients at the end, right? And first of all, should be served as a separate client. And secondly, like, how users can interact with registry and how users can interact with the catalog, right? That's, yeah, we give them a capability.
To me, it's like the easiest way that I like to think about it. And of course, there will be several use cases, but the use case that I see more often is that the catalog is similar to the Hugging Face as you browse it through the browser. So you select what is your foundation model. Then using the UI, because you are doing that in the UI, the people register from the catalog to the registry. Why they do so?
Okay.
Because they want to say, this is my baseline, my starting point for the foundation model. Then they use from pipelines, the model registry Python client to say, this is the baseline. And then they will create a new model, an aligned model, for
I
example,
see.
and then they register that through the Python client again, but to the model registry.
And I see. So basically, it's kind of like, understanding what is my base model, like, and which model I kind of, derive from this base model when I fine tune it or, like train it on top, right? And do I have an API in the register model, like basically in the API, which points to the catalog location to my base model somewhere? Like, do we have an API somewhere for this, or it's
The catalog is like a server, is built on top of the same sort of like framework that we use for model registry. The idea is that you would have only one. The content of that catalog is typically done by an administrator role, so that the administrator will decide on behalf of the stakeholder which are the foundation model that you want to expose. For example, let's say that we want in our company to use only the Llama model from Meta. Okay, cool. So the catalog will contain only those models. How people then align? Okay, they select, I don't know, the latest Llama 4 or the one that is most pertinent to them. They click a button that make the metadata copy from the catalog to the registry that they want, because you could have several model registry instances, and then they go from there. So they will use the model registry Python client to say, give me the first version, okay, of this Llama that is being copied. Okay, cool. Align the model, then storing the metadata as the second version.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, Annie, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so thank you so much, first of all. But I have the biggest concern is that is the idea of the unified SDK just to decrease the number of packages you install from PyPy? Like we had 5, now we have 1. For me, it's more about providing the unified, consistent experience for our users. So we need to make sure that all those clients are well tested, they can work with each other, like trainer, with optimizer, with model registry, with pipelines, etc. We have aligned APIs throughout all the clients we have. And then we need to also decide what APIs we want to expose to our users, etc. You're all welcome to disagree with me. But also, I think we just import all the existing clients that we have today. It will be maybe confusing to our users. And I'm afraid that Kubeflow SDK project will become just one project which imports all the existing clients and not
I think,
at all.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's valid concern, but at the same time, again, we only have pipelines and model registry. Like, we don't have any other clients today. That, like, I think like the model registry and pipelines, they have their own API, which might be tricky to integrate, right? Because they do have like the concretely different, set of functions and API them call they have, right? I guess like the question is like, does it give additional value for user to expose to model registry client? Probably the answer is yes, because in some cases, right, you want to get your model, you might want to have some evaluations in this model, right, to do other things locally before putting this to the training job, for example. Like, Matteo, like from your kind of experience, do you see scientists actually use the model registry client, and how they use it today?
I don't deal with, in full transparency as always, I don't have many chances to interact directly with customer. I can tell you that I get a lot of inquiries from solution architects saying, how do we use this one? So it means to me that the solution architects at least are demonstrating those ones to our clients that we have. So this is the data point that I can tell you. I can see also the point of Anya. Is they say, I can totally sympathize to say, okay, we don't want to be like a manifest, sort of like a way that is just an aggregator for it. And I can totally understand this one. My sort of like another side of that perspective could be that in that case, then is like I am in a difficult position because if that is the resistance that there is, but at the same time from SDK, there is not a clear which are the API that we must comply to.
Could we, yes, before you just jump in, could we provide just a minimum number of APIs we expose initially? Because, for example, like it was kind of a long discussion with MLflow experiment tracking and how all this should stay on top of all those tools and clients. But maybe just provide initially, 2 APIs, get my model, register a model, and that's it.
You
Right?
have open currently on the screen actually the Python
Yeah,
client.
yeah,
As you can
exactly.
see, there are actually two sort of like modules. Model registry is like the simplified versions. So what you have in this client is the bare minimal that we found useful. And we surface in here only things that we sort of like we have an immediate need or that people have asked to do. For example, register model, update, register from Hugging Face, those kind of things. Then the Python client, sort of like the REST client itself to the API, that is that other module for their MR underscore open API. So that one, it doesn't need to be surfaced to the user. And in fact, we don't, unless they decide to just export it for whatever reason.
May I ask a quick question? I also saw there are some APIs for experiment tracking that have been added like a few months ago. Is the plan to still maintain those?
That is a question that needs to be asked to the data science pipeline team, because the Kubeflow pipeline, for as far as I understand, for the pipeline are going to integrate with MLflow. So I've asked in that cap to actually isolate the, like in an SPI kind of way, those API, because the model registry backend actually support those experiment tracking. And indeed, we have a PR that we're simply on holding to integrate with those. So that is something that we are not sort of like it's the code is there in the backend, but it's like we are really on holding on any development for those experiment tracking model registry simply because the cap as it stands right now for Kubeflow pipeline is going for integration with MLflow. So I would like to keep that topic separate. I can see the point, but at this point it's separate because it needs to be decided with the Kubeflow pipeline.
Yeah, sounds great. From my perspective, I'm happy to move forward with that. I just want to make sure that we have a consistent experience for the end users. Yeah, Sat, John.
Yeah, Sad, go ahead.
Yeah, hello guys. From my perspective, I think the main purpose we have created the SDK is to provide a unified experience, tighten the integration between various components we have in Kubeflow, and better serve our community and our users. That's not well, like what I'm going to say is not an official proposal, but it's just like what I have in my mind. I'm sharing my perspective again. Maybe we should maintain two different sets of APIs within the SDKs that we expose. Not just clients. We probably need to expose like a public API or like a sort of like user API that will be the users will be using this API, and a sort of developer API. And the developer API will allow different components to integrate between each other. Like for example, if I'm a training pipeline, and I would like to integrate with model registry somehow, I could be either use the public API or use the developer API, which could expose additional properties for me that doesn't need to be exposed for the end user, to add like annotations, to add labels, and to add other stuff. That's number one. Number two, on the idea of adding just pip dependencies on the Kubeflow SDK to integrate or to have this component supported by the SDK. I know people will go against me, but I think that could initially be okay, given that we will be migrating. We have a migration plan to migrate the whole SDK or this whole component to the actual SDK, which means if model registry would like to integrate or to be part of the Kubeflow SDK, which it should be, we can accept initially the pip install for like a initial phase or whatsoever, till we get the actual team migrate their code to the Kubeflow SDK in the next release or so. And by this, we could like have like an easier path for migration, and we can get an early feedback from users on what we're going to integrate and so on. That will give us faster iteration, give faster experimentation to people, and we can have like just add a thin wrapper around the pip install, like pip install, and then we add like a thin wrapper, then people will just like remove this pip dependency and start adding their SDK right away. That's my own like vision of this. Also, I think we could also add a sort of like owners file, which gives people different teams access to their own folders where their SDK is available. Like if model registry will get full ownership on their SDK part, or like their directory and so on, given that all the cross component testing are all succeeding and nothing is failing. And again, I think we should have a standard way of how we propose the APIs to the end users, and that would be like maybe a sort of decorator that you can add on your functions that expose them as a public API or users API versus developer API that we keep internally for integrating.
Yeah. So like I just want to give again a discussion about just an attention point in KL folks, but I'll make your point and we can maybe follow up on all those things. Yeah, go ahead, Matteo.
Yeah, I think that maybe John has also some questions. So
Yeah.
John, I don't know if you wanted to go ahead.
Yeah, all I was going to add was just I think we need to deal with all of these issues. My biggest worry is if there's fragmentation, if you can import from Kubeflow .model registry or just from model registry. Also, if we have two different APIs, we just need to have a really crystal clear narrative around, which one do you use, right? We don't want to like confuse people with seeing both and not knowing which to use. That's all.
I think we have ambitious goal. I think we just need to understand, like, how to give, again, as Ani and Sad said, like a consistent experience. I like this idea of, that Sad proposed that, if users want to have more detailed API, they can always, have this capability to do so, right? But I don't know, like, Matteo, what do you think about exposing just minimal set of API initially and then iterate and see how users actually consume those capabilities?
But actually, to this point, 100, you have it actually on the screen. So
Yeah.
that exposes the model registry client, which is the bare minimal API. Because as we seen previously, that is like the bare minimal. It just offers to register some model metadata, and it offers to download some specific details. And I can tell it's like, I'm not sure that I fully get the additional PIP dependency problem in a way. So maybe this is something that we can discuss directly in the PR SAD. I would love to hear more about the details about it. But in general, to me, the point would be to say, okay, if we surface this model registry client there, then at least we can get this feedback. Otherwise, my worry is that until like an unopinionated API come up from this working group, I'm basically still of like, I have a gap that I cannot sort of like surface that one in these locations so to get that feedback. So I see that as a little bit as a circular problem to me.
Yeah. I mean, like, definitely. I mean, we definitely should start to, even similar to KFP, right? There will be probably a lot of refactoring. And again, for us, it's like essential to provide this consistent experience. So I don't know. I mean, it would be really nice for us to follow up in the KEP, similar to Spark. I know there is some work probably need to do to maybe we should have just a simple one. If Matteo, like your team is fine with that, to at least discuss initial API design. Like, what do you think on this? Like, would it make sense for you to similar to Spark, create a simple proposal and we can brainstorm some ideas there? Like, how do you feel about it?
I feel that what we can do is that we can take the client, show the API that we have, and then understand if like we need to remove from there. Because I think that we use also in the documentation we have a 5 element. Or to one side point is like regardless of the client code, if it lives in say the model registry repo or in the SDK the client repo, I'm more than happy to have the owner's file in the model registry repo to list any admin and lead from the SDK as an interim. So that we already for the UI is not a problem at all.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to move on. Any other thoughts on this topic?
What I can do then, Andre, I can take as an action item to just go on that existing pull request and sort of like list in this pull request in the comments the API from the model registry client.
Yeah. So I think it will be helpful, and maybe just to see how we can limit them, right? Maybe just hide experiment tracking, the one that we already talking about, right? And maybe have just a limited number of APIs we expose and see how it goes, right? Because users can only do pip install model registry and have full access to other, APIs, right?
Yep.
So that makes sense. All right, thanks for this again. Like, I think we have again ambition goal. Like, it's like not about like we want to stop anyone. We have all different projects, and it's we need to find a way the overall community how to stitch them together, right? And it's really hard because the complexity is it's a lot.
No, fully agree. But also thank you for having us today because I simply do not want this to sort of like a stall in a way because it has been open for a while. So at least we have path forward. Thank you all. I really appreciate all perspectives.
Thanks, Matteo. Isa, do you want to go ahead with the just-in-time checkpoint discussion?
Yes, sure. So this item was added. So I was on a call with Anya recently. So there's some interest upstream about checkpointing. I know there's been some discussions around transparent model checkpointing. That's using Cryo. So we were evaluating. So we did a preliminary implementation with transformers, Hugging Face transformers, where we achieved just-in-time checkpointing. So right now, the thinking is that to support model checkpointing configurations natively via Kubeflow SDK. So that way users trying to use Kubeflow can use the SDK and configure checkpointing and not worry about doing it in the training arguments level. So that includes like smart configurations with idle defaults to achieve this. Right now we do have some we have done some experimentation and we're doing some implementation of Kubeflow SDK midstream, and the goal is I would like to have it upstream at some point, and I think it is beneficial for the community as well. So yeah, just to start a discussion around it, what the community is thinking and how should we go about it. And also there is another cap that is going for progression tracking. I think all of this goes hand in hand in terms of enhancing user experience. So yeah, just to hear everybody's thought and sort of discuss a timeline when we can have this if we agree to bring it.
Yeah, I think this is great. Like, I know there is a lot of caps and a lot of progress going on at the same time. Like, I think a couple of things I want to understand. So, the work that we do in exposing metrics, is it the requirement for us to move forward with checkpointing? And I'm talking about the drop cap in the trainer. So this one, right, the 2779. Is it the kind of a requirement for us before we can do anything? Basically, the callback mechanism.
Yeah, so that's for the progress. So a similar approach for checkpointing as well. So right now, for example, Hugging Face Transformers offers callbacks, and there may be other frameworks that may not. So right now, as I said, it'll be a preliminary implementation with Transformers, maybe a debut, and then extending such support to all the other major popular frameworks. Could be Jax, deep speed, and so on. So it's probably too early, in fact, to bring it into natively support checkpointing in Kubeflow SDK, given that it only supports for transformers today. But if we were to support it, we'll have a custom trainer, a transformer-based custom trainer, so that the user is aware that just-in-time checkpointing is exclusively supported for transformers-based trainers right now, and eventually we can have other popular frameworks, like I said, for support just-in-time checkpointing.
Yeah, but can you help me understand? So why you require, first of all, a specific trainer on SDK side, if the callbacks will be on the framework side, like transformers, deep speed, and PyTorch?
Yeah, so to configure the checkpointing natively from Kubeflow SDK, right now the user will have to modify their training function, for example. So you need to provide some documentation, and the user should be somewhat aware where to place the callbacks and so on, and how to configure the checkpointing itself. So just to abstract away that complexity, and all the idea that we're trying to promote is that if you use Kubeflow SDK, we do it for you,
Okay.
and you just focus on your actual training function and not think about adding callbacks and dealing with all that stuff, how to configure it, and it's an additional overhead for them, for example. So, but if you're using Kubeflow SDK, we'll do it for you, is what we're trying to say.
Yeah, because we discussed, I know Antonin is on the call right now, but like we discussed that probably in Hugging Face or other libraries, we should integrate callbacks reports to Kubeflow, which kind of where we have our own instrumentation to, do checkpointing or report status or do etc. But it's actually user responsibility to put this in their, in their training code. But what you say, we can also build some sort of high layer trainer, right? Which will
Yes.
do this work on behalf of them. And how do you intercept in the application code? Like, how do you do this, not monkey patching, but basically, like these changes before the change job is submitted? Like,
So there's two ways to this, right? So one thing is ideally supporting this natively in the respective framework itself. For example, we have a PR upstream in Hugging Face Transformers itself to add these callbacks to support checkpointing. So the only thing that we'll have to do is inject the arguments, and rather than injecting any of the callbacks. So that's a cleaner way. The only thing is there's a dependency upstream. So, but it is still achievable by doing it in the SDK all by itself. But then, yeah, there will be monkey patching involved in that case. So one aspect of it is the monkey patching of the callbacks. And then the other thing is enabling some of the, for example, periodic checkpointing related configurations. For example, what is the strategy, epoch, steps, or number of steps that we want to save? How often do we want to save? What's the maximum limit? So these kind of configurations are provided by the trainer. So we'll have to initialize the trainer args right before the user code runs. So we patch it with the desired config. Not overriding the user, but if the user is exclusively provided, then we don't do it. But if the user doesn't want it, like just enables just-in-time checkpoint, for example, is flag enabled, then we do it for them. So we are doing this implementation midstream now.
And you're talking about only right now application checkpoint without cryo, right?
No, without cryo, no. Just this is
because there is another kind of work stream which we want to do with Radiostein and other folks to actually have checkpoint policy, which requires some work on the control plane, which kind of allow us to kind of transparently checkpoint the snapshot of the container, basically.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm aware of this. I think we were also looking at this when starting this work, and yeah, it's still not mature. Like that thing is still being finalized. So we wanted to go with something that is possible today.
I think so I think the callback definitely much easier to implement and integrate the application layer checkpoints, right? And the cryo work we will do with Radiostein and other folks on the trainer control plane directly. Like I think my question is to you, what should be the next steps? Like, do we require any control plane changes to make it work? By control plane, I mean like CRD APIs, like train job or training runs.
No. So right now that we could if we want to, but like I think it is achievable solely in the SDK level. But then we should also think about people like MLOps engineers. If they were to submit a job purely by a YAML, then it should still work. Like if they were not using SDK, it's maybe, I mean, it depends. If our target audience is just data scientists, then SDK alone is sufficient. So we don't have to touch the APIs, the trainer CRDs. So everything can be done at the SDK level. But if you want to target both, in that case, we'll have to touch upon the APIs, maybe not the CRDs, but still at the control plane level.
Yeah, back to a question. Yes, the train job progress requires CRD changes.
Yes.
But train job progress also require the upstream changes in the callback. So, so from my perspective, starting with upstream changes might be easier if those frameworks accept it, right? I mean, first of all, I know Hugging Face community needs to accept it, and Deep Speed others, right?
Yeah.
Isa, do we have a folks in like your team who can, drive this forward across all those frameworks? Um, Especially, the callbacks integration.
Yeah, so we are working on purely on Hugging Face right now, but there is future plans. But I don't know how. Like I don't know what the timeline looks like. But we are working as a team. Um, yeah, I suppose. Do you suggest that we come up with a KEP to propose this for? I know we already have a progression tracking. Likewise, do we need one for just-in-time checkpointing to kind of discuss the details of how we would actually achieve this?
I think, I mean, it's up to us to decide. We don't really need, I mean, I guess like the trainer said, yes, Sad, go first. I can give my perspective after you.
Yeah, no problem. I think there is a value in horizontally integrating Kubeflow SDK and Kubeflow components into various libraries that already exist in the ML space or the AI space. That will give us visibility and spread like awareness and adoption across those communities. People will look, okay, we have Kubeflow integration and we have this integration and so on. So that will be nice. I believe for that checkpointing, probably what we need to do is we need to have a design document. I don't know if we need a full KIP and to follow the full process of a KIP of what needs to be proposed, just to be efficient and to be like to be efficient and to be crisp when we go to those libraries and kind of communities. We just to unify what needs to be, what we need, what are we asking, why do we ask for it, and so on. In the meantime, I think the work I proposed a couple of weeks ago, about like having specialized trainers, that would be really helpful. And one more thing on this one, really quickly, from looking and investigating different libraries like MLflow, like Ray, the client side of Ray. There's not really a client side and server side. Looking at Ray library and other libraries, most of them, they kind of hide the backend configuration and the backend behind the scenes. They don't really expose them and ask user to initialize Kubernetes or initialize Ray VM. They just like say initialize Ray, and then you build your own trainer, you build your own training stuff. Then you have checkpointing policies. If you want to do checkpointing, you have your own training loop. You have a scaling configuration, for example, which allows you to change to provide like the job configuration or how much infrastructure you need. Also, you do have like runtime setup, which is customizing how your runtime should be set up for your train job or your AI ML job. Then you trigger your train function or your whatever you want to do. Anyway, that was my perspective. But the action item is to have a design document or something. So when we go to these communities, it is clear enough what we need to do.
I think you're right, Sad. I think like Isa, I think it's absolutely right. Like we should have a design document for others as well, not only for us. So we can propose to say, hey, like PyTorch community, we do have this cap, we do have this kind of like, the process going on. Can we make both successful? So we need some sort of, maybe initial cap to see how those checkpoints can be integrated between us and them. And think about, like short to long-term values, right? If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair because I think a design doc sounds fair because we're still, I mean, there are multiple ways to actually implement this. So I think we need to come up with something that's best. And probably a KEP is transparent enough to share with other, upstream communities to see, we have such feature.
Yep.
So I think that's fair. I'll probably take that as an action item.
Yeah.
We're still doing this in the works in midstream, so we'll see how that works out. And hopefully soon we'll also have a design doc for upstream and continue discussing. Otherwise, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we actually discussed a lot with Antonio over KubeCon, and I think there are a lot of interesting ideas how this could make us train job CRD very successful, especially on the status side, on the time schedule, and other ideas we have in mind on this. So let's definitely follow up. But great work overall here, and
Absolutely.
Anything else here before we jump to Kale? I know we don't have a lot of time, but any other topics?
All good, thank you.
All right. So for the Kale, sorry guys, like we don't have much time, but I know we have a PR. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry. Yeah. The most important part is to ask Andre, yours and other from KSC for the feedback on the PR. We have some tests already that we and in the group, myself and me are working on.
Yep.
But we need feedback.
Let me, just post after this call to the steering committee Slack channel and just give them +1, -1 on this. So if we kind of accept it, are you ready to transfer repos straight away, like to the new organization?
According to Stefan, yes, and Stefan already sorted out all the things. Yep.
Sounds good. And who will be the primary owners? I guess like your team, right, and Stefano.
Yes. And there is a few community contributors.
Yeah, sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, I think it's anything else about Kale.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that we know all the issues that folks think we need to have ready before we can donate it. So I don't know the best place to talk about that, but we've identified a few, making sure the artifacts are being passed, creating an end-to-end test, and then handling that one security violation. But if there's anything that anyone thinks we should have that's not on this list, please tell us as soon as you can, because we want to make sure we're making enough time for that.
Yep. I think that sounds good. I think like I also would love if some of you can also record this demo with VoiceOver. I mean, if I know you have the Kale demo, right? And maybe we should also publish this to the Kale README. I think it's also might be useful for new users, right? What do you think, Eder and Hannah?
Do you mean publish a Kale demo with a voiceover to the README?
Yeah, maybe, right? Because I know you have this demo, but this kind of like without. I mean, it's up to you to decide. We can publish this as it is if you think this is sufficient, or we can re-record this with with the voiceover.
What do you think, Will?
Like,
I think we can do that.
yes, I'll do it.
I'm not sure if what I'm saying is right, but does Kale have SDK? Because we can get you guys from day one on the Kubeflow SDK, but I don't think you do. Do you?
It's more about Jupyter, yeah.
Yeah, it's more about Jupyter, but we are consuming KFP SDK behind the scene. But in future, we plan to use the Kubeflow SDK for all operations.
We should actually talk about how you can, because I know Kale also does some work with Katip for HPO. So yeah, the extension should consume the Kubeflow SDK for optimizer.
As soon as we do the release, we're going to depend only on the Kubeflow SDK and become the first class citizens of the SDK and use the SDK for everything.
That makes sense.
But it's a step by step. So we are going first we do the release and then we can iterate on top of it.
So I also want to spend maybe 3 more minutes, Shahar, give you to for the Spark operator work, right? Do you want to share quickly what you've done and what help you need from the community?
Yeah, hi. I'm on phone. I will not be able to share, but just wanted to quickly discuss how the initial implementation is. So this is leveraging the pretty much same interface and the backend that we have in trainer client APIs. So that is one that makes it pretty much generic enough like other clients. Second, it have two different it have interface basically to submit the Spark job, get the logs, list the application and stuff. But under the hood, it is some kind of strategy design pattern. So that means if someone wants to have use the CRD way of submitting Spark job, they can leverage the operator backend. If they want to submit the Spark job using the REST API, so we can implement the backends accordingly, and it will be able to submit the job through calling the REST APIs, either Apache Levy or later on if you want to have batch processing gateway APIs exposed. So that also provides some REST APIs, right? So yeah, so basically through that we can extend it for different use cases and different gateways.
Yeah, Annie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for all of this work. It is really great. I will take a look at this week. I'm just curious. I'm not that familiar with Spark itself. How would that work with trainer or like optimizer, for example?
So Spark, again, I mean, Shekhar, feel free to jump in, but Spark using Spark application CRD to create actually the Spark cluster, and then you can basically, the main application file is the application file where you define your Spark tasks. So you need to start a Spark session and then the submit tasks there. So like transformations basically. But basically, I guess from my understanding, Shekhar, like the submit application is abstraction on top of CRD, right? And then create this Spark application CRD.
Correct. If we have the backend as a operator backend, then it creates the Spark application CRD. Yeah, that it's based on the backend how we defined whatever we configured. If it is REST backend, then we are expecting to have the REST APIs exposed where we want to submit the Spark application.
And you don't have any integration with Spark Connect as of now, right? Only with the gateway.
Currently, through only the operator part is written in the initial version and tested with the Kubeflow namespace. I had the Spark operator already installed in Kubeflow namespace, and then I was able to run.
Yes, go ahead.
Just like I have a quick question. Does it allow you to like spin a new cluster with a submit application, or does it connect to an existing cluster?
So it currently connects to existing cluster. So it's basically this have service account. So the service account should have enough permissions to submit the Spark job, let's say Spark job and other things. So unless the service account is able to talk to Spark cluster, it should be able to submit the Spark application CRD.
Okay. Are you planning to add like soonish kind of like creating a cluster from your SDK?
That yeah, we can think about that. Let me think about that also. Yeah, thanks, Kush.
So I think I think maybe Shekhar, easier first step would be to create Spark application and just run the Python file, right? Because the connection, we need to talk more on this because we have a Spark Connect. We also have the ability to connect via, like, for example, enterprise gateway for Jupyter. We need to discuss in the future how those things, which API I want to expose on the SDK side and how those things will be integrated. Because I know there is a need for users to connect to existing clusters, and maybe Kubeflow SDK could be a good gateway for them to do so. But for me, it's kind of a next step after you have just abstraction on top of Spark application CRD, right? If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, but basically, this similar Spark PI, right? Like this CRD, how you can create this CRD, and this is Scala, right? Like thinking about just a PySpark, right? How we can create the Spark application using just a simple SDK API, right? In another ask, maybe I think we should, as we said before, make it API consistent, like as much as we can, which means like create job, release job, wait for job status API should be consistent across all those clients. And we can simply refactor your API to make them the same, similar to the configuration for Kubernetes, like namespace, etc. Right? Can also be consistent. Yeah, I can provide these comments on the cap directly if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. No overtime. Anything else here? Any other points? Yeah, I think integration with Spark definitely is super interesting. I think we it might be challenging because it's kind of more complex because many people use Spark differently. It could be for feature engineering, even for training with Spark ML, Leap, etc. But I see kind of an interest from the folks to, you know, like have a simple way to submit those applications in Kubernetes cluster without knowing the CRD definition, right? So which might be super useful for many people. All right, let's definitely follow up. I have another topics, but we can talk about it next week. So thanks everyone for your time. A lot of things to work, but let's follow up async on the caps, and looking forward to talk to you soon. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.